Imagine a place of refuge, a haven for animals in need, a sanctuary where every creature, big or small, finds solace and care, a place where the air is filled with the sounds of joy, and the sight of animals frolicking in open spaces brings peace to the soul. Now picture filth, suffering, and neglect, the stark contrast between what should be and what is. The once vibrant sanctuary now lies in ruins, a shadow of its former self. The animals, once full of life, now languish in despair, surrounded by squalor and decay. This was the grim reality at the Daisy Animal Sanctuary in Waterford, Ireland. A place that was supposed to be a beacon of hope had turned into a nightmare. The sign that once symbolized safety now stands as a testament to broken promises and shattered dreams. 70-year-old Pat Edwards, the woman entrusted with their care, became their jailer. Her face, once seen as a symbol of compassion, now reflects the betrayal and neglect that the animals endured. The trust placed in her was not only misplaced, but also devastatingly broken. In 2024, her crimes came to light, shocking the community and landing her in jail. The news spread like wildfire, leaving the community in disbelief. How could someone who was supposed to protect these innocent beings cause them so much harm? The betrayal felt by the community was palpable. This is the story of betrayal, of animals failed by the very person who promised to protect them. The distress in their eyes tells a tale of broken trust and unfulfilled promises. Each animal's sorrowful gaze is a silent cry for help, a plea for the compassion they were denied. Edward's 8-month prison sentence, a 20-year ban on owning animals, and a €1,500 fine might seem like justice served. But is it enough? Can any punishment truly compensate for the suffering endured by these innocent creatures? The legal consequences, while significant, cannot erase the pain and trauma inflicted. But the story goes deeper. It's not just about one woman's actions. It's about a system that failed to protect the vulnerable. It's about the need for stricter regulations, better oversight, and a community that remains vigilant. The deeper investigation reveals systemic issues that allowed such neglect to go unnoticed for so long. It's about the importance of vigilance, of recognizing the signs of animal cruelty, and of understanding that our actions or inaction have very real consequences. The activists and rescuers remind us that we all have a role to play. By staying informed and proactive, we can prevent such tragedies from happening again. This is a call to action, a plea to open our eyes, our hearts, and to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The community's rallying cry is a testament to the power of collective action. Together, we can create a world where every animal is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. Let us be the voice for the voiceless and the guardians of those who cannot protect themselves. On February 23, 2023, officials from the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, accompanied by the ISPCA, paid a visit to the Daisy Animal Sanctuary. This visit was not a routine check, but a response to numerous complaints and reports of animal neglect and abuse. What they found was far from a sanctuary. Overcrowded cages, animals crammed into small, filthy enclosures, and a pervasive stench of neglect filled the air. Animals languishing without proper veterinary care, many of them suffering from untreated illnesses and injuries. The sight was heartbreaking. A pervasive sense of neglect hung heavy in the air. The shelter, which was supposed to be a haven for these animals, had become a place of suffering. This wasn't a case of isolated incidents, it was systemic, a blatant disregard for the well-being of the animals in their care. The neglect was evident in every corner of the sanctuary. Officials meticulously documented the conditions, taking notes and photographs to ensure that no detail was overlooked. The evidence was overwhelming. Immediately, an animal health and welfare notice was served to Miss Edwards, the owner of the sanctuary. The notice outlined the numerous violations and the urgent need for corrective action. The directive was clear. No new animals were to be admitted, and the existing animals were to receive immediate and proper care. The sanctuary was effectively shut down to prevent further suffering. Veterinarians and animal care workers were brought in to assess and treat the animals. Enclosures were cleaned, and the animals began to receive the medical attention they so desperately needed. This notice, however, was only the first step in a long and harrowing journey to justice. Legal proceedings were initiated to hold those responsible accountable and to ensure that such neglect would never happen again. The community rallied together, demanding justice for the animals and stricter regulations to prevent future abuse. The public outcry was a powerful force, shining a light on the unseen suffering and pushing for change. The inspection revealed a horrifying catalogue of neglect. A Harris hawk, its leg mangled by a deeply embedded brass ring. Buzzards, their wings clipped by old, untreated injuries, their spirits as broken as their bodies. A pigeon, its fragile bones shattered, left to suffer with an open fracture. The suffering wasn't limited to birds. Puppies, their fur matted with feces, their tiny bodies riddled with worms, shivered in the cold. Cats, their fur so tangled it formed painful mats, hid in the shadows, their eyes reflecting fear and despair. The sanctuary, meant to be a safe haven, had become a prison of suffering. March arrived, and with it another inspection. The air was thick with anticipation and a sense of urgency. The inspector, clipboard in hand, approached the gates of the sanctuary, hoping to see some improvement. The notice served to Miss Edwards seemed to have fallen on deaf ears. Conditions remained largely unchanged. The pens were still in disrepair, and the shelter looked as neglected as ever. It was as if time had stood still, and the animals were trapped in a never-ending cycle of suffering. The animals continued to suffer. Their eyes, once full of life, now reflected only despair. The signs of neglect were unmistakable: matted fur, visible ribs, and a palpable sense of hopelessness. Each cage told a story of abandonment and pain. A follow-up inspection in April yielded the same disheartening results. The inspector's notes grew longer, filled with observations of ongoing neglect and unaddressed issues. The concern on the inspector's face was evident, a silent testament to the gravity of the situation. Miss Edwards, it became tragically clear, was either unwilling or incapable of providing the care these animals desperately needed. Her promises of improvement had proven to be empty words, and the animals paid the price for her inaction. On May 12th, armed with a search warrant, authorities returned. This time, the atmosphere was different. There was a sense of finality, a determination to end the suffering once and for all. The authorities were not just there to observe, they were there to take action. This time, they weren't just there to inspect, they were there to rescue. The cages were opened and the animals were gently carried out, each one a symbol of resilience and hope. The rescuers moved with purpose, knowing that every moment counted. 17 more animals were seized, each one a testament to Miss Edwards' neglect. The crates were loaded into rescue vehicles, and for the first time in a long while, the animals were on their way to a better life. Among them were pigs with painful, untreated skin conditions, their suffering evident in every movement. The filth and neglect they had endured were heartbreaking. 11 dogs deprived of basic care, their eyes pleading for the love and attention they had been denied. Their condition was a stark reminder of the sanctuary's failure, and 2 fox cubs, their wild spirits crushed by confinement. They had been robbed of their freedom, their natural instincts stifled by the small cages that held them. The rescue marked the beginning of their journey to recovery. The case of Shadow, a fox, stands out as a particularly egregious example of long-term neglect. For 6 long years, Shadow had languished in a cramped, barren pen. Despite repeated instructions, Miss Edwards had failed to improve Shadow's living conditions. He was, in essence, a prisoner of indifference. Finally, in a courtroom, the animals of Dicey Animal Sanctuary found their voice. Judge O'Shea, presiding over the case, minced no words. He called the sanctuary a house of horrors, a place where obvious neglect and a breach of trust were shockingly evident. Miss Edwards faced multiple charges under the Animal Health and Welfare Act and the Microchipping of Dogs Regulations 2015. Her guilt was undeniable. Section 6. Beyond the Bars, a Call for Change. The Dicey Animal Sanctuary case is not an isolated incident. It serves as a stark reminder that animal cruelty often hides in plain sight. Silence allows it to thrive. It is our duty to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. If you witness animal abuse or neglect, do not hesitate to report it. In Ireland, the ISPCA and local authorities are your first line of defense for animals in need. Your call could be the difference between life and death, between continued suffering and a chance at a better life. Section 7. The True Mark of a Sanctuary. Legitimate animal sanctuaries play a vital role in our society. They provide refuge for abandoned, abused, and neglected animals. But the word sanctuary should not be a shield for cruelty. Stricter regulations, Thorough inspections and accountability are crucial to ensuring that these sanctuaries truly live up to their name. Support your local animal shelters and rescue organizations. Volunteer your time, donate supplies, spread awareness. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, makes a difference. Section 8. Our shared responsibility. The responsibility to protect animals extends beyond sanctuaries and rescue organizations. It rests on each of us. Before bringing a pet into your home, consider the long-term commitment involved. Animals are not disposable commodities. They are living beings deserving of our love, care, and respect. Provide your pets with proper nutrition, veterinary care, and a stimulating environment. Educate yourself on their needs and be attentive to their well-being. Responsible pet ownership is not a burden, it is a privilege. Section 9. Hope Endures. The story of the Daisy Animal Sanctuary is a difficult one to read, but amidst the suffering, there is a glimmer of hope. The animals rescued from that horrific situation are now receiving the care they deserve. Their spirits, though broken, are slowly beginning to heal. Let this case serve as a catalyst for change, a reminder that we must never turn a blind eye to suffering. By working together, we can create a world where all animals are treated with compassion and respect. The fight for animal welfare continues, and it is a fight we cannot afford to lose.